All right, so with the college basketball offseason coming, I've got the updated ESPN article that I sent you about the out and in of each coach. Before I even just start reading down the list, of course we'll have like a big segment about Kentucky, but are there any ones that stick out to you right away?
Um, I mean, Obviously being in Kentucky, the Louisville one was kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think what's his name is Pat Kelsey. Am I
Yeah.
correct on that?
Yep.
Um, I think he's going to bring a good energy to Louisville. He was successful at Charleston. Did a good job there for the time that he was there. Brought him to the tournament this past year. Gave a Final Four team in Alabama a good run for their money. Um, I think what he's going to do there, he's going to bring the energy early on. He might not be, I don't want to say successful. I think he'll be a good coach there, but early on might not have that instant success. But he's going to bring the energy to where that fan base is going to get behind him. Um, and so I think that'll be good for that fan base because I think anytime that Louisville is good, it's better for college basketball. Um, so I think that'll be pretty neat to see.
Mm-hmm.
The other one, Michigan's hired Dusty May. I mean, a lot of people are kind of saying that, if it wasn't for that tip in against Memphis, I mean, no one would be calling for his name. Um, and that without that, they wouldn't have made the Final Four. And, no one would want him to go to Michigan. He wouldn't be a Michigan caliber coach. But things happen the way they do. So I'll be interested to see if he brings any of his guys from FAU over there because I think if he does that, then he'll have a good foundation to build upon this year, and then especially for next year, that'll give him some time to start building for next year's team. So those are kind of the two for me that stick out.
Yep. Um, I'm currently looking at a. So here's one that I just looked at. That it's an interesting one, and it's with SEC with Mark Beington. I don't know how to say his last name specifically. He's the previous James Madison coach. He just got the not just got, but he got the Vanderbilt job. Um,
Yeah,
and I think that'll be interesting just because like Vanderbilt is one of those teams that I mean you expect to finish last in the SEC almost every year, and I mean it's just because of the competition. The SEC in basketball is getting better by the year. It used to just be Kentucky ran through everybody, but now I mean you've got multiple good teams. I mean Auburn, Alabama, Tennessee, even like South Carolina was solid. So it's interesting to see this James Madison coach who brought up, James Madison to be like a pretty solid program. They won like 32, 33 games this year. One of I think 4 or 5 to win 30 plus games, and so I mean it's really promising for a guy like that to come into a Power Five school and just see what he can do. It's going to be a project, and it's not going to happen overnight. But it's interesting to see if Vandy gets gets on the rise here. But going down the list of ones that I mean could could make headlines. Of course, first one, Arkansas. Eric Musselman is out, and John Calipari is in. I'm interested to see how many. I don't think it'll be a whole lot, but how many transfers from Kentucky will go with Coach Cal, or even commitments. Um, I don't see Aaron Bradshaw going because I'm pretty sure that he was going to go to the transfer portal from the start. I don't think Thiero will, but I could be wrong. Um, Trying to think here with the decommitments, maybe they go, maybe they don't. And that's Carter Knox, that's Santos Cyril, and that's Jaden Quaintonance so far.
yeah,
And of course, Big Z. I can see Big Z going to Arkansas with Coach Cal. Um, but I mean, Cal's gonna have to work his butt off to get recruits because there's no one on that roster. And
yeah,
another thing that is a what if scenario that I'm hearing a little bit of rumors about is that Coach Cal brings Kenny Payne back to his staff. So, what do you think about that?
Well, I think Carter Knox is going. I mean, I don't know if you've seen his Instagram bio lately, but he changed his Instagram bio to say Chicken Man in it. So
Okay.
take that for whatever you want to say, but I think that clearly puts him in Arkansas.
Right.
I think Big Z would actually fit much better in the Mark Pope system at Kentucky
Right.
than he Cal system. I saw the tweet that Cal is bringing everyone with him to Arkansas as far as staff goes, besides John Welch, which I think that's a big loss for Cal to lose John Welch.
Yep.
Fresno, he was his X&O guy on offense, and obviously you saw how Kentucky offense played this year.
Great.
It was, I mean, unlike any Cal offense we've seen in the entire 15 years that he was at UK. So I think that'll be a big loss for him. And so do I think Big C goes to Arkansas? Probably, just because Chuck Martin and Coach Cal are the two that recruited him. And if he's going to stay in college basketball, he's probably going to want to be in familiar territory with those two. I think Coach Cal will probably bring in maybe 2 or 3 recruits / just people we had on the team last year. I agree with you. I don't think Adu's going to go there. I think Adu's going to want to go to a bigger school than Arkansas and get a better NIL check from them rather than going to Arkansas. I think he'll fit in a better system than whatever Cal's going to have him in, and I think he wants to be, maybe that 1 or number 2 guy in the offense to showcase his skill for the NBA. But like you said, I think Coach Cal is going to recruit a team there, but it's just a matter of who is he going to be able to get, and that'll be important. And I think he'll have an easier time than you think, just because of the amount of money they're going to have in NIL for Coach Cal to recruit. And he's a great recruiter, but we'll see if that translates to success, because obviously, he had a great team this year, but look how it played out. So another coaching thing I wanted to look over before we move on or talk about another one was the two in what conference does Indiana State and Drake play in? Are they in the MVC?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't understand the Indiana State coach going to St. Louis, because you look at the Drake coach and he took the West Virginia job. That's clearly an upgrade of the job. I would say you would agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
But then the Indiana State coach, he takes the St. Louis job, and I understand that St. Louis is an A-10 team, and I guess you would say that the A-10 conference is better than the MVC, but I don't really see it being that much of an upgrade. I kind of seen it be just like as a neutral coaching change for him. And I feel like he could have stayed at Indiana State and maybe, kept those guys that are now in the portal because he left. But that's just me thinking.
Yeah, with that one, I think it's 2 things. One could be possibly more pay. Having a successful year, and then, after you have a successful year with kind of what seems to be a mid-major team, will get you a good payday. And 2 is St. Louis is probably going to have a little more competition than Indiana State, and because I feel like Indiana State kind of got hosed. I think they should have made the tournament. I figured that you would have thought the same thing. They were.
I think we could argue about that all day long.
Oh yeah, they like I talked about James Madison. Indiana State was one of those teams that I'm pretty sure had they had 30+ win category, and you don't make the tournament. But that's besides the point. Couple mid majors on here that I just want to graze through. Phil Martelli's son, Phil Martelli Jr., just got the Bryant job this offseason. Cal Poly got a new coach. We will talk about this one for a second. Charleston, of course, Pat Kelsey going to Louisville, and former Louisville coach Chris Mack getting that Charleston job. What do you think about Chris Mack getting that?
I think it's interesting. Chris Mack, he got released from Louisville, sat out a couple years of coaching, and now he's taking over Charleston, whose coach is now at Louisville. So it's kind of a full circle. I think I actually like Chris Mack.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of tired of his antics at Louisville when Kentucky was playing him, and they beat UK during the 9-16 season, and they were posting ridiculous videos and everything, and it's like, okay, come on, dude, that's your first time beating Kentucky,
Right.
first time beating Kentucky in a little bit, like, just have some respect about it. But I think he's going to do a great job there, especially with NIL. I think he'll be able to recruit some good players there. I think he'll hit the transfer portal pretty well. I think his first season will probably be a little bit down compared to where Charleston was last year, but I think that's just inevitable with how late into the coaching search that Charleston hired him at. But I think he'll do a really good job down there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the same thing. I mean, he brought up Louisville. I mean, whenever they're kind of in the dumps from Pitino, and I mean, that COVID year they were probably going to make a little run. I mean, they were top 10 before. I mean, I want to say top 10, top 15 before COVID shut everything down. I mean, of course, whenever the Cats beat them at home, they were the number 3 team in the nation. And I remember they beat Duke that year, and but yeah, I mean, so Chris Mack can bring up teams. It's just that, like, I'm pretty sure he got in trouble at Louisville and led him to have to resign / get fired, and so he took a couple years off, and I mean now he gets another chance with the mid-major. One small one that I mean I'm kind of closer to the situation with. Coastal Carolina hired Justin Gray, who used to coach Western Carolina. He played at Oak Hill for my great uncle. He led Western Carolina to a 22-10 record last year, which is pretty solid. And Coastal Carolina is kind of one of those teams that could slip in the last 4 in. Next one on here is DePaul with Chris Holtmann, former Ohio State coach. He kind of got a bad rap, I think. I mean, he had like 1 or 2 kind of like not the best seasons, and so that kind of led him to get fired. I mean, he had a couple years there where he made the tournament, maybe like won the first weekend, but I mean, Ohio State's not one of those teams that you're gonna get like top recruits. But you have anything about the Chris Holtmann situation?
I like him. I mean, he's a Nicholasville guy, so I mean, you always want to cheer for him. Just from
Right.
with us being from that area. But he was, a few years ago, mentioned in the Kentucky, job. Whenever Cal was going to retire or leave, people were looking at him. I think the biggest thing for him was that he didn't really adjust to the NIL transfer portal era as much as he should have, and so I think he got behind with that, and it kind of showed. I think he's a great X's and O's guy. I think he's going to do a great job at DePaul. I mean, he's already had some people commit to him,
Mm-hmm.
and he's a big name transfer portal people that are going to go visit at DePaul. He's also got Dwayne Peavy there, the new athletic director at DePaul, and he was at UK for a while under Coach Cal, and so I think they'll have that connection with each other, and it's always good, to have a connection with the athletic director, especially when you're going to be starting a new job. So I think he'll be fine. I think he'll transition well, and DePaul can't get any worse. I mean, they only won like 3 games, so.
Yeah, you beat me to it with that. I mean, I was about to say, like, he's going to look great regardless because DePaul won like 3 games. So, I mean, you can't get any worse than that unless you win 0 games, which I don't think that Chris Holtmann is going to come in and win 0 games. One that's kind of interesting is Duquesne's coaching change. Keith Dambrot was there, and now it's going to be Drew Joyce III. It's kind of like a LeBron James. Like, I mean, a lot of that's associated with LeBron James. I mean, if any basketball fan knows the story, is that Keith Dambrot was LeBron's high school coach before Drew Joyce's dad was Drew Joyce II, and now Drew Joyce III, LeBron's former high school teammate, is now getting that Duquesne job. I'm looking at the list here of ones. Of course, Indiana State's coach got a new coach. IUPUI got a new coach, which hopefully that'll change up their program and not only win 1 or 2 games. Detroit Mercy, same thing. Next one that we're kind of close to is James Madison. James Madison got a new coach, like I said. Mark Beington, I want to say his last name, went to Vandy, and Preston Spradlin from Morehead State got that job. I think that's a good hire because Morehead State had a pretty solid year this year, and Spradlin's brought up Morehead State, and also he's got like the Kentucky background too. I think that's a good hire.
Yeah, I'll tell you. Obviously, Western Kentucky, our coach, he went to Oklahoma State, and so word around town here was that we wanted Preston Spradlin, but our coaching search took a little bit longer than we anticipated, just because Coach Letts was still having some contract negotiations with Oklahoma State, just trying to figure out the amount of years that they were going to have him there, and so by the time that got all figured out, Spradlin had already taken the job. But that was a big name that everyone here wanted to get, and a big name that everyone within our athletic department that I work with that we wanted to get as well. But so I think he's going to do a great job where he's at now.
Yeah. I'm going to save Kentucky for last because, me and you being Kentucky guys, we're going to dive into that a little more.
Yeah.
Long Beach State, of course, getting a new coach, which it's interesting how their previous coach got fired and still led them to a tournament. Let's see here. Marshall got a new coach. Michigan. So, like you mentioned with, Dusty May, I think that it'll be good to get because it seemed like Juwan Howard will get you recruits. As it shows, because there are about 3 or 4 decommitments now from Michigan. But Dusty May can coach. And, Juwan Howard brought in Phil Martelli to be his, X's and O's guy. And they didn't do a bad job there for a little bit. Of course, the Division I scene right now is very cutthroat. If you don't have 1 or 2 good seasons back-to-back, you're probably going to be on the hot seat and get fired. And that's what happened with Howard because, I don't know if you remember, but the 2021 year, I want to say, they made, the Sweet 16 or Elite 8. And they had a pretty solid record. And, and even, the COVID year, I'm pretty sure that they had a solid year. So, those are, I know that's probably, 3 or 4 years ago now, but then you have back-to-back years of just not doing too great, yet you're going to get fired. And so I think hiring Dusty May is a good one because he's brought up a Florida Atlantic program to make the Final Four and then be a 5 or 6 seed this year. I think that's promising for a Power 5 school like Michigan.
Yeah. Do you think that had FAU not got the tip in against Memphis, or hadn't gotten to the Final Four, do you think he still would have been considered for the job?
I don't think he would have been highly considered, but because making the Final Four definitely put some eyes on people. Got some eyes to look at them more. I think that's kind of how Shaheem Holloway probably wouldn't have gotten the Seton Hall job if he didn't beat Kentucky and Purdue.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you win in March, you're going to get a good payday. Whether that be with your university or with another university. And so I'd say probably, he wouldn't have been as high on the candidate list. Maybe he still gets considered because, he still brings Florida Atlantic to the NCAA tournament back-to-back years. But to answer your question, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Is that what you think?
Yeah, I don't think he would be one of the top 5 people they consider. Maybe does a Kentucky situation happen where there's 5 people they want to go after and they all say no, or you just can't get them for whatever reason, and then they interview him, maybe. But I agree with you that I don't think he'd be very high on the list if they didn't make the Final Four.
Ohio State hiring Jake Diebler, who was the interim last year. I think that's a good hire. I mean, you come in right away and beat the University of Purdue. I mean, I think that's solid. You talked about say it again.
He almost got them into NCAA tournament consideration after the
Yeah.
start they had.
Yeah.
I mean, he did a really good job. They had an early exit from the NIT, which I'm sure they didn't want. But I mean, at the same time, if you're in the NIT and you're not really motivated to play, you're going to lose.
Exactly.
So I don't think they were too motivated to win that tournament. So I'm not shocked that they lost as early as they did. But like you said, I mean, they beat Purdue. They were on the fence of winning the Big Ten tournament and then almost making March Madness. And they started the season, I think, below 500, like a third of the season in. So.
Next one, you talked about your boy Lutz going to Oklahoma State. I don't know a whole lot about him, but I mean, wasn't his only year at Western last year, or has he been there 2 years?
Yeah, so his first 2 seasons were at Texas A&M Corpus Christi. He was there for 3 years. 2 of them, they made the NCAA tournament, and they won their conference. And then he came to Western this past year, his first season, finished third or fourth in conference, and then won the tournament and made the March Madness tournament for the first time in 10 years. And talk about a slam dunk hire, I think, for Oklahoma State. I mean, I wish we could have got another season of Steve Lutz. He brings success wherever he goes. I think he'll do really good down there just because he'll have more money. He was able to bring in some really good transfers here. He brought some with him to Western Kentucky from A&M Corpus Christi. So I think he'll be a name to look out for a little later down the line as far as like a major Power 5 team for him to be hired to. But he'll definitely be missed down at Western Kentucky. But he's a great coach. You could just tell with the players we had at the beginning of the season how much better they improved throughout the year. He's really good at developing talent, and I think we had 6 men of the year, freshman of the year, and we had a player up for defensive player of the year too. So he did really good down here.
Yeah, Cozart had himself a year. I mean, no, he's at Eastern now. Shoot.
Yeah.
He was at Western though. That's why I said that. But no,
Yeah.
Western still had a good year, and I mean they're always one of those teams that it's fun to watch if they're on.
Oh yeah.
Moving on, St. Louis, of course, we talked about that a little bit with Josh Schertz from Indiana State going to St. Louis. Next one, this is a small one, but I think it's interesting because I didn't notice it until I just read it. But Siena hired Jerry McNamara, which I don't know if you remember that name, but Jerry McNamara was he was a point guard, shooting guard on Syracuse whenever they won in 2003 with Carmelo. Him and Carmelo were like the 1-2 punch on that team. My dad's a huge fan of Jerry McNamara, and I think it's interesting that they just hired him. I mean, I don't really know his coaching background a whole lot, but I mean, I think that's cool to see a NCAA legend like that go play it. I mean, go coach somewhere. But next one that we'll discuss is USC hiring Eric Musselman. Eric Musselman has had, kind of like how you talked about Lutz, Eric Musselman has had success everywhere he goes. I mean, of course, he hasn't won the big one, but I mean, I loved watching his teams at Nevada. I mean, because they had some dogs there. I mean, of course, like with my background with Oak Hill Academy too, you had the Martin twins the one year, and I want to say they made the Elite Eight before hitting Loyola Chicago, who had their little Cinderella run to the Final Four. And of course, Musselman going to Arkansas. I mean, Arkansas has been a pretty solid program the past couple of years now. So going to USC, has got some more eyes on them. I mean, part of it is mainly because of Bronny, but USC just being a solid program in general. I mean, I can see Musselman maybe winning the Pac-12 because there's no one in Pac-12 now. But I mean, I forget. But what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's interesting what you said about the success at Arkansas. It's like, Cal's going to Arkansas, and people are like, well, Arkansas has not really done much lately, but actually they have. I mean, Musselman brought him to 2 Elite Eights, a Sweet 16, and then obviously he missed this year. So there's a lot of expectation at Arkansas, and I think you're right. There's not a lot of expectation at USC right now. All eyes were on them since they had Bronny and then also Isaiah Collier.
Right.
And so I think for him, because I think he's from California, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right.
Yeah, so for him, I think to be going back home and to be comfortable is going to really help him. He'll be with his family a lot more often. I'm sure they moved down to Arkansas while he was down there, but now they get to go back home and be with extended family probably. I think he'll recruit well. I think he's really good at developing talent. You mentioned he was there that year. The bottom was they go to the Final Four that year. Was it Elite Eight?
Elite Eight.
Yeah, and they had the Martin twins in that team, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, he's a fun coach to watch. Obviously, I mean, he gets pretty crazy on the sidelines.
He does.
After a win. But really fun coach to watch. I think he'll get really active in the transfer portal. I think he'll be able to attract talent down USC. I think it'll be a little hard just because now they're in the Big Ten, and so now you're going to be flying across country, every week. And so for those kids, that's going to be hard. So that might, throw a few kids away from wanting to come. But at the same time, it might bring them in because then, if they're from the East Coast and their family's going to be able to watch them regardless. But I think he'll do just fine. I'll be interested to see if he's able to get Bronny James back to USC or if, Bronny maybe goes to Duquesne or Bronny stays in the draft. I don't know. But I definitely think Bronny will be a lot better this next year wherever he goes. I think he kind of had a hard time playing after that heart surgery he had.
Right.
But I think Musselman will just fine down there.
Yeah, I guess I didn't catch that USC went to the Big Ten, but they need to call it something else, maybe the Big Conference or something. There's a lot more than 10 in that conference now.
Yeah, they're gonna have to change something up.
Yeah, like the Big 20 or something like that. My gosh, it seems like they're doubling. But moving on, the next one that I'll talk about is Utah State's coach Danny Sprinkle going to Washington. Washington's one of those sleeper teams that could knock off some upsets here and there. I thought their team was going to make the NCAA tournament this year, but they kind of hit a road bump and hit a speed bump and just couldn't get past it. But they beat Gonzaga at the beginning of the year.
Yeah,
and they were solid.
I think a big reason why they didn't do as well is their big man Frank Kepnong. After that Gonzaga game, he was out the entire year.
Okay.
And he was their energy guy. He was their big dude. He was really skilled. He played at Oregon before he went to Washington, and I think just not having him there is probably what killed their chances of being what they probably should have been.
Yeah, that sums it up. I guess I didn't catch that because, of course, with us Kentucky fans, we're gonna keep tabs on Washington. We were keeping tabs on Washington this year just because of Keon Brooks and Severe Wheeler. But Danny Sprinkle brought up a Utah State team. Of course, you don't think that Utah State would be a solid basketball team, but he brought them up pretty solidly. I think that there's promising potential there.
Yeah, I think year in and year out, they were either in the tournament or being considered for it.
Right.
Obviously, being at Utah State, you kind of have to win some big games, whether that be winning majority of your Mountain West conference games or scheduling, 2 or 3 big schools to play every year. But I think just him being able to get an 8 seed at Utah State says a lot.
Mm-hmm. I already talked about Mark Beington a little bit, but next one is West Virginia hiring Darian DeVries from Drake, and with that he's bringing his son along, who averaged I'm pretty sure 18 points per game. Um, I think that he's going to bring up West Virginia because he did it with Drake, and also because West Virginia they had one of their worst years in a while this past year, and that was just because of the Huggins situation, and they didn't really know how to how to react to that. So I think that getting a solid coach in, and having an off season and a preseason to implement what he wants. I think that West Virginia is gonna be back this year.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. It's really nice as a head coach when you get to bring your son with you, and he's a 20 point per game scorer.
Right.
So that's obviously going to help him big time. I agree with what you said. I think he's going to do a phenomenal job there. West Virginia is always a powerhouse whenever Bob Huggins is there. So I think he'll do a good job of getting that back to where it was before the Bob Huggins situation went down. So I'll be interested to see how they do in the new Big 12 with all the new teams coming there next year.
Right. Next one on here before the big one. Do you have anything you want to say about Western's new coach?
Oh yeah, 38 years old, so he's young. He comes from a JUCO. I can't remember. Indian Hills JUCO.
Okay.
He had an 86% win percentage at Indian Hills. He was hired there at 28 years old, so obviously he started out really young. He brought Don McHenry and Enoch Colombe with him to Western. Don McHenry was a first-team All-Conference USA selection. I'm pretty sure he's going to stay here again and stay with his coach. He was the head assistant coach on Letz's staff, so obviously, for you to be the head assistant, you have to be highly praised. They were nothing but, just great remarks from, Bill Self, the new Iowa State coach, and just a few other coaches when asked about him. So I think him being 38, being able to keep some of the players that he brought with him, he's going to be able to connect well with the team. I don't really know too much about his play style, but from what I've heard, it's going to be kind of similar to what we were this past season, where we led the NCAA in possessions per game. So just being a fast-paced offense, trying to get a shot up within 10, 15 seconds of the shot clock. Just trying to outrun a team, being a fast, physical team. He's 38, so he's going to be here for a few years before the job, hopefully. Hopefully we don't have to go through another coaching search again. But I think he's going to be a name to look out for over the next few years, especially if he has good success here. Obviously, Conference USA isn't what it was of the past few years. UAB's gone, UTSA's gone, North Texas is gone, and we kind of replaced those with some not fairly too well teams. Liberty had a down year this year in their first year. We're getting Kennesaw State next year. We're also getting Delaware. I don't know why we're getting Delaware, but we are. And so I'll be interested to see how he does his first year. I think he's keeping most of the staff that was here this previous year. I know one went to Oklahoma State with Coach Lutz, but other than that, I think we're going to be keeping most of the staff, most of the players. Dante Allen hit the transfer portal again, so I don't think he's coming back. But it should be a lot of familiar faces next year.
Jeez, it seems like he's been in college forever now. But,
I know. He has another year.
Yeah. I didn't talk before we talk about Kentucky's. I didn't talk about Louisville. A little bit, but I think that Pat Kelsey, like you've talked about, is definitely going to bring Louisville back up because he brought up a Charleston program that Charleston's mid-major, and he's already hit the transfer portal and got of course some of his Charleston guys went with him, but he also got Terrence Edwards Jr., who was one of the I'm pretty sure he was James Madison's top scorer and averaged 18 a game. Like,
Yeah.
he got like three of those guys within like a week or two. And also he's young, he's energetic, like he's gonna bring up Louisville. I mean, of course, he's gonna look like the savior because they're not gonna look like the past 2 years Louisville teams. So, but anyway, on to the big one, and I'll start with my Kentucky talk of Mark Pope. So I think it at first, because of all the big names that Kentucky's talked about before, and then seeing Mark Pope, it was kind of like, what the heck are we doing? But it's growing on me for sure, and that's because he's young, he's an energetic coach. I mean, he's brought up a BYU program. Who thinks of BYU with basketball except for like Jimmer? And with that, a lot of the boosters are more fans of him than Calipari. The boosters before were not really willing to give Calipari the NIL money to go out and recruit people, and so like Cal had to kind of plead for it, and then whenever he went to Arkansas, and like the boosters there were like, hey, we'll give you however much NIL money you want, kind of made me mad at first. But now, like, how much support that Mark Pope has gotten already for the University of Kentucky is very promising. He can coach. I like. He kind of ran kind of the style that Kentucky ran this year, but at BYU. But with the NIL, they've already pledged $4 million. I'm pretty sure is what they said. Rick Pitino is advocating for everybody to basically like pitch in for some NIL. He's trying to get Travis Ford to give some money, and with that, Kentucky may have a quote unquote down year this year, but Mark Pope's gonna hit the transfer portal like crazy. Could get Reed Shepherd back because of him being roommates with Jeff Shepherd whenever and then that goes to the point of Mark Pope played in Kentucky. Like, with Calipari like finishing off, like he still had his role of like, hey, we're gonna get you to the league, we're gonna get you paid. Mark Pope's like, yeah, I'd like that, but I'd also like a freaking ring. He won as a player. The biggest thing that he wants is to win championships for the University of Kentucky. So he's going to bring in guys that want to win, along with, hey, I'd like to get some money too. And with that, even I heard stuff that DJ Wagner wasn't the biggest fan of Cal at the end of the year, and he was maybe going to hit the transfer portal. So DJ may come back too. So seeing a backcourt of DJ and Reed for another year, along with getting solid, probably like some mid-major transfers, and maybe some Power 5 transfers. I'm excited for Kentucky's future. There are a couple from BYU that are probably going to come here, along with, one of them being their top scorer, averaged like 18 points per game. Mark Pope in a Big 12 conference beat Baylor, Iowa State, and Kansas among other teams. And those are NCAA tournament teams. And they made the NCAA tournament. They kind of choked. But bringing BYU as a 5 or 6 seed, and they could have even been a 4 seed. That's promising for a school that is in such a tough conference. So, I probably talked for about 3 to 4 minutes there, so I'm going to let you go on your talk about Kentucky and Mark Pope. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think I agree with what you said. At first, you're kind of like, really? Mark Pope? Like, that's the best we can do? And, I had my talk with my friends that night, and we were up until like 12, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning just talking about it. Like, dude, what are we doing? Like, we have all this money, and you go from Dan Hurley all the way down to Mark Pope, and then you sleep on it for a night, and you wake up, and you start looking at this dude's offense. You start looking at, what has he done? I think people forget he coached at Utah Valley State before BYU, and he was up at 10 at Rupp Arena against Kentucky at halftime. That's hard to do for any school to be up at halftime against Kentucky, let alone 10 points at Rupp Arena. And so I think as the day went on, and the week went on, I kind of started liking the hire a little bit more. I think he's going to do pretty well here. I kind of agree with what you said. Like, first year might be a little bit down, but I don't think it's going to be as down as people think. He's already hitting the transfer portal pretty hard. He's already got Jackson Robinson, who's really highly interested in coming to Kentucky. He played at Arkansas and A&M before transferring to BYU. Led the team in scoring. Had 17 points per game. Was a really high three-point shooter. He did really well in their game against Duquesne. I think he had 20-plus points in that game. He also has another player in the portal. I think his name is Colin Hall, maybe. I don't know if that's correct or not. But he's a 9 points per game scorer, sophomore out of BYU, has a non-contact tag on his transfer portal, so I think he already knows where he's going. You got Ali Khalifa, a big man at BYU. His stats don't pop off, but he played at Charlotte for a year or two before going down to BYU, and so I was actually able to watch him a few games because Charlotte was in Conference USA before they transitioned over to another conference. And then I also watched a little bit at BYU just because I was kind of interested to see how he would do in a Power 5 team. And, like his stats don't pop off, but he's a really skilled big man. I mean, he kind of reminds you of Jokic a little bit. He's a really big body. He can pass the ball well. He led all of college basketball in assist-to-turnover ratio while playing 19 minutes a game. So I think that kind of stands out. And then also, Mitch Barnhart was on KSR, I think it was on Friday, and he said that Mark Pope had already received 2 calls from 2 guys that said they wanted to come to Kentucky, but they wouldn't go to BYU. So I think that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And also, go ahead. What do you want to say?
No, I was just agreeing with you.
Oh yeah. But I think that also makes me think like, yeah, they didn't want to go to BYU for whatever reason, but they want to come to Kentucky. So I think getting that to where the name on the front of the jersey matters more than the name on the back, which I think Cal kind of was recruiting players that were more playing for him and for their name on the back of their jersey rather than coming to play for Kentucky, which is why you see a lot of the old teammates of Mark Pope are, backing the hire because they love the university. It's not because they loved who coached them. It's they love the university and they want to get back to it. And they want to get back to it because there's a person here that also loves university. Rick Pitino, you mentioned, he's willing to donate NIL money to help Mark Pope be successful. When have you ever heard of a head coach at another D1 program say that they're going to offer NIL money to another program while he's like, that's just unheard of. Granted, he's going to retire in 2 or 3 years, so I think he doesn't really care. But Mark Pope also called UK students the other day and left a voicemail to all of them. So he's obviously getting all the energy back into the program. He's getting ready to have a press conference at Rupp Arena, which I'm sure you'll probably be listening to.
And it's free. I don't know if you saw that, but they're not like charging a thing. They're letting all the fans come in and stuff. It's completely free.
Yeah, and if you get on Twitter, there's been a line outside Rupp Arena wrapping around it 4 hours before it even starts. So people are going to be there. They only have 7 sections of Rupp Arena open, but they said if they have to, they're going to open more. I have a feeling they're going to have that entire lower bowl field, maybe.
Yeah.
I think he's going to have fans there. I think he's going to have former players there. I think he might have former coaches there. So I think there's a lot more people out there that are invested into it now. You mentioned NIL. There's some stories that I've been hearing just from, some friends that I know that work at UK. And then also you just read on Twitter about NIL and why that wasn't successful at Cal. I don't want to get into it too much, but I think there were some broken relationships there, and that's why there wasn't as much donations towards Cal. So we can, just leave it at that. But
right.
Like $4 million had already been donated by 2 donors combined, and that's not even including what the fan base is donating right now. Other donors that are going to get involved, whatever the heck Rick Pitino pledges. And then you get on Twitter this morning and you see he's after the Drexel big man, Amari Williams, point guard from Oklahoma State, Javon Small, Ali Khalifa. So he's hitting the portal hard, and he's going to try and get those guys. He's also going to try and probably retain a few of the freshmen that we had on our class this year. So I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to work out just fine. And I think it's good that we have someone that wants to be here, and not just someone that is here for themselves.
Yes, that's a good way to finish it off. All right, so we're gonna transition over to the transfer portal now to finish off our off-season report. As of April 14th, of course, there is still a whole lot of the summer, but this has been one of the most eventful off-seasons in the less than a month that it's been of the off-season, probably since I can remember. I mean, I don't know if you feel the same way, but
yeah.
But we'll get into some of the. I mean, I'm on the rankings of 24/7 Sports, and I know I sent it to you. So going down the list, number 1 transfer is Omar Abalo from Arizona. He's a solid big guy. Crystal ball is 100% to Indiana. I know that I'm trying to look at his top, if they show this top 3.
I think it was Indiana, Louisville, and Michigan, maybe, or Indiana.
Yeah. I knew it was. I knew Louisville was in there, but
yeah.
I didn't know for sure. But 6'10", 245, came out of high school as a 4-star. Interesting to see. I mean, that would be a big get for Mike Woodson. Probably going to keep his job just because, that's one of those ones where if Mike Woodson has another bad year or two, he may get fired. Going down the list, of course, we talked about DeFries's son, who's number 4 transfer. He's going to West Virginia. AJ Storr from Wisconsin. Crystal ball is for him to go to Illinois. He's solid. I watched him a little bit. John L. Davis. I don't know a whole lot about him. He's a Florida Atlantic transfer. He left just because of Dusty May. Some of the ones on here, you've got Mark Mitchell from Duke as the number 9. He is 100% to Kansas State. At number 11, you've got Kanan Carlisle from Stanford. That's another Indiana. That's another Indiana one. So it seems like Mike Woodson's hitting the portal pretty hard. Going down the list here, I'm trying to see. Of course, you've got Adu Thero at number 18 from Kentucky. I know this is just I'm pulling out a random prediction here, but it seems like a player that Bill Self would try to hit up. I don't know why, but that's just a prediction in my opinion. And stop me if you have any predictions or anything on here. But another one for Indiana is number 15, Miles Rice from Washington State. He's committed to Indiana. Let's see here. Kylan Boswell from Arizona has committed to Illinois. Let's see here. Hey, by the way, Memphis is still in the Conference USA, right?
Memphis?
Yeah.
Memphis is in the AAC.
Oh, AAC. Okay. Well, they got a commitment. Number 23, PJ Haggerty. Memphis started off really good, and then they kind of just fell off after a little bit. I remember they were number 10 in the nation at one point.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a big one that I didn't know that it's 100% now, but Vladislav Golden, the big guy from Florida Atlantic, I know that he was getting some love from people. They said he's 100% to Michigan, joining Coach Dusty May. Brandon Hundley Hatfield from Louisville has committed to NC State. He's number 28 on the rankings. Here's one that I think would be interesting. Andre Stojakovic, Peja Stojakovic's son, is number 32. He was from Stanford. I wouldn't mind if Kentucky went after him. I mean, is that one that you would? I mean, he was interested in Kentucky for a little bit there. I mean, have you seen him play at all?
I've seen some highlights of him. I haven't really looked too much into him, so you probably know a little bit more about him than I do.
Yeah, he plays a lot like his dad. I mean, he can shoot the lights out. Here's a prediction for you. Aaron Bradshaw from Kentucky is number 35. Like I said, he was probably going to go to the transfer portal even before Cal left. And that's just because before the decommitments, there were two strong, solid big guys coming in. But I see Bradshaw possibly going closer to home to Rutgers. Just because, he's from New Jersey. I mean, that's closer. And also, Rutgers is bringing in 2 top 5 players, so they're going to get some hype around them. And having a former 5-star who has potential, I mean, Rutgers would be stupid not to reach out.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Unless they are somehow able to get Cliff Morey back from the portal.
Yeah. Under Bradshaw's Aiden Holloway from Auburn, he was a big-time player out of high school. Interesting to see where he'll go. Under him is number 37, Robbie Avila, the otherwise known as Larry Nerd. He is probably going to go with his coach to St. Louis.
Let me say this. I think he'd be a perfect fit in Mark Pope's system.
Yes. I think so, too.
I think he would do well in that.
100%. Under him is Mason Gillis from Purdue. I got to see a lot of Mason Gillis during the tournament. He was their 6th man that came off the bench. Could knock down a solid 3. He played the 4. I mean, that's another one that could go to Kentucky and thrive. I mean, it's his graduate year. That's why he's transferring from Purdue.
Yeah, he kind of reminds me of P.J. Tucker a little bit. That big body corner specialist who would do all the dirty work for you.
Yes, 100%. That's perfect. Jumping down, number 46, Terrence Edwards Jr. from James Madison going to Louisville. Number 50, Michi Johnson going from South Carolina to Ohio State. I do not understand why he is number 50. There's no way there are 49 other players in this transfer portal better than Michi Johnson.
You know what's funny is he started at Ohio State.
Yeah, I do think that's funny. What were you going to say with it? You cut out.
I just said I find it funny that he started there, went to South Carolina, and now he's back.
Right. I mean, he just had to go get his buckets at South Carolina.
Yeah.
Then you've got, let's see here, Sky Clark at number 55 from Louisville going committed to UCLA. Bronny's at number 56. If I were to guess, he'd probably either go to Duquesne or Ohio State. That'd be my 2 predictions. I mean, would you have anything different?
No, I think he's either going to Duquesne, Ohio State, or he's going to the draft.
Yeah.
I mean, could he go to Duke? Maybe, but John Shire hasn't been particularly a coach that has hit the transfer portal.
No. Number 65, Riley Kugel. We know him well. From Florida, going to Kansas. I could see Kansas getting a couple more of these guys in the portal because in the past couple of years, Kansas has hit the portal pretty hard. Of course, Dickinson last year, and even guys like Remy Martin from the championship team.
I'll say Bill Self is not going to only get 5 guys that can play basketball this year. After what his team looked like this past year, he's going to get 7, 8, 9 guys that can go on the court and can provide you a basket.
Yep. And his quote was, and I forgot if I said this in the March Madness episode, but whenever they got beat in the second round by Gonzaga, he said, "I'm going to be honest with you, the past month I've been looking forward to the next season."
Yeah.
So either they're going to be stacked, or his years are limited because he's losing the love for the game.
Mm-hmm.
Number 68, Trey Townsend, and he's another one that we know well. Trey Townsend had a solid year at Oakland. I don't understand why he's number 68 on here. He could be another one that could go somewhere like Kansas. I mean, he's proved that. I mean, he can play with the big dogs, and
yeah.
I mean,
I
go
saw
ahead.
you visiting Michigan, which would make sense because it's close to Oakland.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be close to family and where he's from.
Yeah. I mean, I just see him going Power 5 regardless. I mean, guys should be coming to his door. Let's see here. Keep going down. Got a couple commits here. Bensley Joseph, number 82, going to Providence from Miami. We know this one a little bit. Number 84, Marquise Warwick, Northern Kentucky. He played at Henry Clay, which is close to me in Landon. I saw where I think he has a top 5 in there, of course, like Power 5 schools. Looks like he may go to USC and join Musselman. Yeah, I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, I saw his top 5, but I thought he might want to stay a little bit closer to home. But that'd be interesting.
Yeah. And right under Warwick is number 85, Baba Miller. I don't know if you've heard about his story at all. Have you?
Not particularly. No.
So he, I want to say his first year at Florida State, they made him sit out. I forgot why. I don't know if it was like NIL stuff or injury or what it was. But then he didn't really get an opportunity second year. But I like, from the stuff that I've seen, like, he's got a really high potential. And of course he hasn't really gotten to show it. So whatever school that he goes to, I'd watch them this year. Because I feel like, I mean, he could be one of those ones that you're like, where in the heck did he come from? And then, I mean, kind of like how DJ Burns this year. I mean, but I feel like he could dominate where he goes, but I mean, we'll see on that. Earl Timberlake at number 89. I remember that name a little bit from a little bit ago. Cam Carter from Kansas State. He's going to LSU. That's number 99. Number 103, Trey White from Louisville is going to Illinois. Of course, this one was earlier in the year, but number 109, Mikey Williams, going from Memphis to UCF, and that was right after UCF made their upset against Kansas. I remember that. But what do you think about Mikey Williams? Do you think that he'll show something this year?
He's been out of it for 2 years now.
I think this was his first year.
Okay. I find it hard to be able to judge what he's going to be able to do. I'm not sure how much work or practice he's been able to get throughout the entire legal situation. So I think, Penny's a good coach at Memphis. Is he at Memphis or UCF now?
He's going to UCF.
UCF, so he'll be with Johnny Davis. That's his name, right?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so the thing about Davis, he was there the game that they had Taco Fall, and they probably should have beat Zion Williamson and Duke. So I think he's a good coach. Will we hear much from Mikey at UCF? Maybe, maybe not. I think them being in the Big 12 is going to help out a lot. I think just not being able to see how he's played in college yet is kind of a question mark for me. It's kind of thrown me off on what should I expect? Should I expect him to be a 20 points per game player, or should I expect him to come off the bench and get 5 to 8 and just be a role player? So I don't want to put too high of expectations on him. But I also don't want to put too low of expectations on him because I think he's a solid ball player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And with that, here's another one that's kind of controversial. Have you kept up with Dior Johnson at all this year?
Yeah, he's is he JUCO or D2 now?
He's JUCO right now. He just finished up his JUCO year, and
He's
dude,
putting up some good numbers over
dude,
there.
dude was getting buckets. I mean, I think that he's ready. I mean, as long as his head's screwed on straight, I think that he'll come back, and
Is he in the portal?
he should be. I mean, he's not on the rankings, but that's
Yeah,
that's because he's been
I
written off.
I think if he goes into the portal, I definitely think there'll be a lot of people suited up to take him on. That's for sure.
Yeah, dude averages
Um,
like 28.
yeah, I mean, 28 per game, no matter what division you're at, is pretty good. I mean, you've got to be able to score the basket and know how to play the game if you're going to put up 28
Exactly.
anywhere. Um, so I think whoever gets him is going to be pretty lucky.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm going to be honest, the only thing is for me is before he came out of high school, he switched teams like 3 or 4 times commitment wise. So there's a little bit of an issue of judgment there. But obviously, I mean, 5-star talent having to go to JUCO, I think he might have learned the lesson there.
Dude also went to like 6 high schools.
Yeah, so I think that's one thing you got to look out for is like how committed is he going to be to your program.
Right.
But I think going to JUCO, he might have learned something there,
Mm-hmm.
playing lower level, and just having that. Oh dang! I actually have to get serious about this now.
Right.
So
Two more that I want to highlight, and then we'll finish it off. Number 120, Bay Fall from Arkansas. He was a highly touted recruit coming out of high school. Interested to see where he'll go. And number 138, Connor Esigan, from Wisconsin. He had a pretty solid year, but I mean he's had a solid career at Wisconsin. I'm pretty sure it's his grad year, but I could be wrong. Are there any guys that I mentioned or did not mention that you want to talk about?
um, let me see here. Let me look through the list.
Yeah.
We covered a lot of the key players in there. I'm not really sure how Omar Bala is the number one transfer. Um, if I'm going to be honest with you, he hasn't really impressed me too much. If I'm being completely honest, I think big games he didn't really do much. He kind of is slow, kind of heavy-footed, just from where he's carrying all that weight. I don't think he's really skilled in the post. I don't think he has a lot of moves to get around you or to get you in the air and draw you foul trouble and stuff like that. So kind of interested to see why he's number one, but I'm not the one making the list. I think the only two that I would watch out for would be at number 22 and number 24, Tremont Mark, transfer from Arkansas. I think he averaged like 18, 16 points, something like that at Arkansas. So I'll be interested to see if he goes back to Arkansas now that Cal's there, or if he's going to go to a little bit of a better school than Arkansas. I think he'll be a pretty good player. And then also at 24, Cade Tyson out of Belmont. I know that Kentucky had reached out to him before the Coach Cal thing happened, so I think he would actually be a perfect fit in the Mark Pope system. So I don't know if that's someone that he's going to look at, but he averaged 5.5 threes a game, I think, for Belmont, and he's a 6'7" stretch small forward. So I think he'll be a pretty good player to watch out for. I think he's going to make an impact at a big Power 5 school.
Yeah, I mean that pretty much covered it with those. Well, that's it for our off-season. So month into college basketball off-season. I mean, we about covered every major topic. I mean, and we did it for over an hour. I mean, that shows how eventful this off-season's been already. I mean, do you have anything else you want to say about coaches or players or any even predictions?
Um, I'm just interested to see how the whole dynamic goes um, as far as transfer portal, because now the dead period's over with. So now you can start contacting these players officially again. So I think we'll get some fast activity in that in the coming weeks. So I'll be interested to see who goes where, who goes to Arkansas, who goes to Kentucky, and how is Mark Pope going to finish his staff? Who's he going to hire? So I will be very interested in that in the coming weeks and coming months.
Yep. There are a lot of questions, and there will be answers, but us impatient fans are not going to be happy at times.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for our show here. I appreciate you coming on, and we'll, hopefully the listeners will tune in next week as we have a couple episodes that we'll be planning with the NFL draft and even the NBA playoffs. So tune in for that. Landon, as always, I appreciate you coming on, and hope you had a good time.
Yes, sir. I'm looking forward to the next one as always.
All right, sounds good. I'll let you go then.
All right, you have a good one, man.
All right, you too. Thanks.
See ya.
All right, peace.